Thanks.
I want to bring in Rhode Island Congressman David Cicilline right now because prior to serving in Washington, you were mayor of Providence, Rhode Island, and you remember you're also a founding member of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, which New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg heads. Tomorrow, that group releasing that $10 million ad blitz. 13 states targeting specific senators that Bloomberg believes can be persuaded to pursue stricter gun laws. Presumably, they've already been nudged and cajoled and berated, hopefully, to a certain extent. How effective do you think this new ad campaign can be?
I think it can be very effective. I mean, the reality is we don't have to persuade the American people.
Okay.
These common sense proposals are supported by the vast majority of Americans. Universal background checks, making sure the background system is fixed. It's a broken system, making sure that criminals and seriously mentally ill people don't have access to firearms. The American people support that. I think what the ad campaign will help to do and what the president's campaign around the country will do will activate people to be sure that they reach out to their members of Congress.
Shouldn't people be activated? I mean, after Newtown, Connecticut, weren't people
You would think
activated?
so. I mean, you would think that we would have already passed responsible gun safety legislation. These are common sense proposals. I've co-sponsored all of these provisions on the House side. Carolyn McCarthy, there have been bills pending to do all of these things. We ought to pass these. We lost 20 first-grade children to gun violence. Since Newtown, there have been over 2,200 gun deaths in this country. We ought to be sure that every single time a gun is sold, it's subjected to a background check to be sure that criminals and those who are seriously mentally ill don't have access to firearms. We should not allow assault weapons, which are weapons of war, to be in the neighborhoods of our cities and towns in this country. We should enact systems to be sure that when you buy that you have a background check and you do it in person. So you go online today, you can buy as much ammunition as you want. Anonymously, just go online and order it to be shipped to your house.
But the ammunition background, we know that's not going to happen. We know that. You know that's not.
Listen to me. I think what's different this time is we have got to keep the American people engaged in this fight. If members of Congress, members of the House and Senate hear from their constituents and say, you must support common sense gun safety legislation, and if you don't, we will not support you remaining in office. It's got to be that. This is urgent.
But if it hasn't happened yet,
well, you would hope that the loss of 20 children, first-grade children who are slaughtered because of gun violence in this country, you would hope that this makes the conversation different.
Why isn't the group using the pictures of those kids in the ad? Well, because that would be effective.
Right. I think what the ad is doing, the ad is speaking to gun owners. There's a man with a gun says, I'm a gun owner, and I will fight to the death to have the right to possess this gun, but I also recognize that we have to make sure that criminals and people who are seriously mentally ill don't have access to firearms. It's common sense.
Wayne LaPierre, I'm sure you saw him on Meet the Press this morning. He spent some time talking about Mayor Bloomberg and how the mayor has chosen to spend his money. Take a listen.
He can't spend enough of his $27 billion to try to impose his will on the American public. They don't want him in their restaurants. They don't want him in their homes. They don't want him telling them what food to eat. They sure don't want him telling them what self-defense firearms to own. And he can't buy America. He's so reckless in terms of his comments on this whole gun issue.
You know, a couple of months ago, a lot of folks were called the NRA crazy. You know, they came out with the ad, with the president's kids in it, and they came out and they called for putting more guns in schools. Everyone's like, God, those guys are nuts. It seems over the past maybe 4 or 5 weeks that the NRA may be winning this battle between gun control advocates and...
Look, there's no question the NRA has enormous power. They have prevented responsible gun safety legislation for decades. So no one thought this was going to be an easy fight. But what I think Mayor Bloomberg's investment in this is really to give voice to the millions and millions of Americans who support common sense gun safety legislation, to say we need to do everything we can to be sure that criminals and seriously mentally ill people don't have access to firearms. We need to remove assault weapons, the most dangerous kinds of firearms, from the neighborhoods of our cities and towns. We need to fix the background check system and make sure every single sale of a gun is subjected to a background check to ensure criminals and seriously mentally ill people don't get guns. These are common sense proposals.
Well, they're common sense to you. And
I think they're common sense
to me.
no, they're actually common sense to most Americans, including members of the NRA. Most members of the NRA think a background check system that is universal makes sense. Mr. LaPierre testified for it.
Charlie Rangel sat in that same seat an hour ago, and he was a little bit more cynical than Congressman Rangel is, and he said something that made sense to me. He said, you know, people talk about these polls, and 85% support background checks. Like, He said, we don't hear from the 85%. We hear from the 15%. We hear from them every day. They email, they call, they petition. Those are the people we hear from.
I think that's right. And we are hearing now from folks that have been part of the Demand a Plan, the Mayors Against Legal Guns, Million Mile March. But the reality is the American people have the right to expect that we're going to do the right thing. We shouldn't have to hear from people to say, get rid of assault weapons, have a universal background check system, be sure criminals and the seriously mentally ill can't get firearms. Those are common sense. We don't need to hear from people. But I think the more members of Congress, members of the Senate hear from their constituents who are demanding action, honor the lives we've lost to gun violence in this country by enacting responsible gun safety legislation. This is going to be a big fight. The NRA has enormous power in Washington, but I hope the American people ultimately will trump that by staying engaged in this fight.
I want to end on a high note here. I want to show our viewers something that caught my attention. Can we show his? Do we have the capability of showing his cowboy boots? You represent Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
But you roll in here with some boots.
It's an effort to reach out for votes in the Midwest and build some bipartisanship in the Congress.
Those are some serious boots. I like those. I like those a lot. Thank you so much, Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island, not Texas.
That's right.